Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to introduce you to the team from Mercury Engineering in a while, in a brief minute. I just want to say thanks very much for joining us. Worksafe, Homesafe is the theme. I know the sheds are closed, but soon to be reopened, and we're full of optimism about that. And a lot of the safety messages and learnings can be taken up at home, and even if you're outside the shed, and go walking and working like that as well. So I will hand over to Aoife Behan, who is the executive assistant and office manager, and sometimes known as the overall boss of Mercury Engineering, who keeps everything flowing.
Doubt that very much.
So over to you, Aoife. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Frank, and hi everyone. We're delighted to take part in this webinar today. It's mainly Robbie and Declan that are the experts here. I'm just saying a quick hello to say that we're delighted to be in partnership with the Men's Shed. We did a lot of research at the start of the year in 2020, and Men's Shed was one that stood out to us. We feel it's going to be a great partnership. There's a lot of shared values and skill sets, and we're happy to get involved and hopefully work alongside you with some projects and give any tips or advice or help anywhere that we can. It's been a horrendous year. I think everyone is on the same page to do with that one. COVID has challenged everyone more than anything else, and we're just all taking it day by day and trying to get through it as best we can. So I'll hand you over there to Robbie.
Hey guys, I'm Robbie O'Dowd. I'm Mercury's Group Head of Environmental Health and Safety, and I'll just tell you a bit about the company. Some of you may know us, you may have worked for us. So set up in 1972 by Frank O'Kane and Joe Morgan. Frank sadly passed away. Joe is still alive and kicking, but he's not as involved anymore in the business. We're working all over the world and have done in those 50 years or nearly 50 years. Oil and gas, shopping centres, pharma, data centres, you name it, we've done it. And we've a huge amount of people and have had working for us for those number of years. I think the turnover is approaching the €1 billion mark at this stage. So we've gone from quite a small company all those years ago to becoming the second biggest construction company in Ireland behind CISC. So we're not doing too badly. We've huge staff, huge amount of good people and great people working for us. And we're working all over Ireland, UK, nearly every country in Europe that you can think of. And we've worked previously in the Middle East, and probably will be going back out that direction and maybe into other new areas in the future. And that's it. I've been with the company myself since 1989. So we're been there, done that, and I have a few t-shirts. I've been a project manager, construction manager, all that type of good stuff. I run sites. I'm a time-served welder, pipe fitter, and I turned to the dark side in safety, as they say, about 15 or so years ago, and it's enjoyable. Every day is a school day, there's no doubt about it. And our main purpose as safety people, our safety team, is to assist and help. So everybody deserves to go home at the end of the day, and that's what we are. We're a support function, and we want people to do it right, do it safely, and go home at the end of the day. And it's no different to you guys in what you do. You come in the evenings to do your bit in the shed. We don't want you, I'm sure Frank doesn't want you to lose a hand or a finger or an eye or anything like that. And that's kind of what we do and where we'll come in. And if you need guidance or help or anything like that from us, we're more than willing to give it.
Thanks very much, Robbie. Declan, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, look, thanks very much for requesting and being involved in this. I'm Declan O'Donovan. I'm 25 years with Mercury. Started off as an apprentice electrician and worked across a lot of different sectors and so on. So working my way up now into senior project manager, and I'm looking after the Children's Hospital here in Dublin, the day-to-day operations. So yeah, look, as Robbie has said, our main focus is making sure everyone is home safe in the evening and that we get a job complete. And done safely. So yeah.
Right. Thanks very much. I was reading, and I suppose this is probably where, you know, where health and safety fits. It's described as an anchor value to Mercury, which I think is something that's I think men can relate to. You know, it's one thing trying to get the job done, and everybody's in a hurry, and everyone has a deadline. But if safety has to anchor all that project. And I suppose in light of that, and I believe I read also that there was over 20,000 safety audits done in 2020. So I'm giving you, Robbie, credit for all those 20,000. So
I didn't do all of them, Frank.
Well, you signed off on most of them, I'd say. Listen, we're going to dive into the whole area of COVID-19. Obviously, it's affected, it's cast a shadow over all our worlds for the last 12 months. And you guys have been kept going, and then some sites are closed at the moment, and you're waiting to get back open. But you've kept an impeccable record all that time. I was hoping, you might be able to share some of the tips that how you operate in a COVID-19 world, really. So I think you're going to take that, Robbie.
Yeah, well, I'll start it, and Declan's working in the NCH in that project down there, so he'll go through what they're doing. And I suppose from our point of view, when the whole COVID thing started, first and foremost, we got a committee together, which Aoife's part of. It's our crisis management team, and we've had a contact point for all of our workers overseas and in Ireland, that if they weren't feeling well, or what to do or what not to do. So that was very important from the outset, that people had someone to contact and could get guidance, and proper guidance. And the guys sat, nearly every day for a long period of time, making sure that everything was in place and people were as safe as possible. On site, what we started doing is we implemented our procedures. So again, we temperature tested everybody every day coming into all the projects. So that was our first indicator. And to date, we've had 40 people throughout the group who have tested high temperatures. We've sent them away. They've come back for, send them away for 10 minutes to cool down, maybe test them again with just a normal thermometer, infrared one. They've come back as 38 maybe, and we've sent them away, and 40 people so far have come back as positive. So there are 40 people we were able to take away, one of them being a project manager who would have most likely infected his whole team because he'd be involved in the whole process. So it's been very effective for us. It was very, very simple, but very effective. Social distancing been another one, the guys respecting the 2 meter rule or the 1.5 meters and wearing the face masks. We introduced the face masks very early as mandatory across our projects, when other main clients and our competitors, if you like, laughed at us. I was on a few CIF meetings, and I said we were going to introduce this as mandatory for Mercury personnel, and I was laughed at. And as it turned out, we were right. We were ahead of the curve in what we were doing, and look, we've been lucky in the fact that we've had the backup from the very, very top. They let us do what we do, and they back us to the hilt. And I suppose for you guys, working in the evenings, you can catch it anywhere. You catch it down to shops, but you're more likely to catch it if you're working in close contact with people. So again, the face masks, the social distancing, the screens. I know we'll talk about screens in a bit, but again, it's very, very important. And we kind of use a 15-minute rule, not to be working too close to anybody for more than 15 minutes. Take a break, try and get air going through the projects. It's quite easy on a construction site, certainly that's only been built, because a lot of it is external. Our biggest problem was in the offices, when people would come into the offices maybe for meetings. You'd get people that would pile into a room. So what we had to do with the meeting areas, we could only have maybe 2 people per room, and we set up on the sites, we set up COVID marshals. So they went around with green vests, they still do, and if they see anybody kind of loitering or breaking the rules, the procedures, they just gently remind them, and it's for their own safety. We've had no kickbacks really from anybody regarding it. It's been well received, because I think the guys understand that this is for their own benefit, and it's not something, as we said to them, we have Worksafe, Homesafe. We also have Homesafe, Worksafe, and we've asked the guys that if they're feeling unwell and they don't feel, they feel they might have the symptoms, not to come into work. So that's Homesafe, Worksafe, because you're protecting your workmates then as well. Okay, so that's very important for you guys, that if you're not feeling well, please don't come down, even though you may have arranged to meet the lads and you like the banter and you like the crack and whatever else goes with it, but you're protecting everybody, and that's most important, because this is something that's brought home. If a guy cuts his finger in work, he can't bring that home. He brings it home. He's the only person that has a cut finger, and everybody at the table laughs at him. But COVID-19 is something that you're bringing home to parents, loved ones, grandparents, etc., etc. And it's been a real challenge for us. But I do think that we've done quite well out of it, and we're getting, hopefully, to the other side of it, where society can start to open up again. But Declan might take you through what the guys are doing. They're doing regular testing on the NCH project, the antigen testing. So Declan might take you through that, what the guys are actually doing on site.
Thanks very much, Robbie. Yeah, look, obviously, when it hit us, it was a big thing. We were trying to work around what did we have to do and so on. So the first item that we did when we came back onto site, and look, this is obviously through the main contractor as well, we added in a lot more hand wash stations around the site. Now, obviously, we couldn't get it up through the building. So around, say, welfare areas, we put in a lot more sinks and hand dryers and so on. But the issue that we did see was, how would we do that out on site in areas? So the best way to do that was, we put a lot of the hand sanitizers on stair cores. So where there would be a lot of traffic, we would put a lot more in those areas. So when people are generally coming up and down the stairs, they would hand sanitize their hands. Now, it would also be the case, gloves as well. We want them to do that as well, because they'll be lifting material. We've asked them not to share tools. That was a big item. We don't want that happening now. You will come across drills, jigsaws, and so on, for grinders. Again, what we've implemented is, at the end of every day, we clean those. So we're signing those out to individual people, and then we clean them at the end of every day. Staggered times for starting and breaks. That was another item that we implemented there. We've obviously a large site here. There's approximately 1,100 people on site at the moment. So we couldn't have everyone coming through the gates at one stage. So we separated that, and we put a number of people down one end of the site and another on the other side, created more welfare areas to sit down and have breaks. So that has helped massively. But the one big item that I see is the wearing of masks and the snoods. Look, people can say what they like. I personally believe that they're a great asset, right? Keep your 2 meter distance as well. It will be hard in certain areas, but be sure you're well ventilated, all that kind of stuff. That all helps. As Robbie said there, we're also doing temperature checks. So every morning, anyone that comes through the gate, they have to go through a turnstile. Now, I know that's not going to help yourselves there. It's a computer system here, and it automatically checks your temperature. But there are manual ways of doing this. As Robbie said, the IR guns, you can check people's temperature and record it coming in. Because we all know there's a lot of people out there that have no symptoms at all, and they're going around. And that's one thing. Over probably 5 weeks now, 6 weeks, we're doing it as PCR tests. So every week we're testing approximately 1,100 people. And 2 weeks ago, we had 0 cases here, confirmed positive cases. This week we started off again. First round of tests were done on Monday, and Mercury, we had 1 positive case. So that person is off and self-isolate due to government guidelines and so on. But we're collecting close contact details. Again, that's something that you will have to do, and make sure you have a list of that, so that if anyone did come back with a positive case, you need to let their close contacts know straight away. So look, there are a lot of good ways of doing it. We're obviously on a big, massive site here, but on the smaller side, hand sanitizers either side of the door going into the units. manual checking of temperatures. That's another way of doing it. So there are a lot of ways, and I would stress wear your mask and do the usual, keep your 2-meter distance. Inside in the offices here as well, we've reduced our staff. A number of them can work from home. And again, Robbie has mentioned about Perspex screens. They're great here in the office. They work very well, and we have sort of alternative days where people will come in and out. So we're trying not to be side by side at any one stage, you know.
Yeah,
but look, it is a learning curve for all of us as well.
Yeah. Interesting that you use the temperature as a screen, and you found that, obviously, given the statistics you're quoted, that's proven to be quite successful. As I know, it doesn't cover symptomatic, and nothing is absolute with dealing with this thing, but it's an interesting one. And look, resources are an issue. It doesn't suit every shed, but the handheld thermometer is an easy. It's another layer of defense, I suppose. Yeah. Is how Luke O'Neill, I think, describes it.
Frank, another simple thing that the sheds might be able to do, I'm just thinking, you know, to keep costs down and just get used to the practice, the day-to-day safety measures, is in all of the Mercury locations, offices, sites, everywhere, they must complete a declaration form before they either enter an office or a site. And all that does is it asks a number of questions about if you're feeling unwell, if everyone in your household is feeling well, if you've been outside Ireland, if you've been in contact, close contact, and it just stops everyone to stop and take stock of what they've done maybe in the past week or the day before or the days leading up to when they're going to go into a Mercury office or facility. And it's just a paper document. Some of the sites do it online and some of them do it in paper format. It's a very easy template. It's one that we could share with you. And I don't know what the setup is really in the sheds, but if there was going to be somebody from each shed that would maybe, you know, take ownership of something like this, and, you know, if you were having the handheld thermometer checks, somebody to take ownership of doing the declaration form would just give everybody, I think, some level of comfort for when you do go back.
No, absolutely. That's a good one. And the other thing you were saying as well is about the COVID compliance officers, and I suppose sheds being degrees smaller than your average site, but I still think it's something, a role that could be shared, because it is too much on one man, because I know it's all done the light and a nice way, but it might be something that there's a COVID, you know, there's a couple of guys or maybe three, depending on the shed size, and just by just as you say, just gentle reminders and of behaviour. I'm going to introduce at this stage the snood. So you mentioned them, and these are for the lads. There's, just to show you, it's a scarf, but it also pulls up and can be doubled as a face mask, which makes it quite an easy way of covering your face if you're in and out of an area or in and out of outside. Now, just to say to everyone today, I'm not going to sound like Ryan Tuberty or Gay Byrne, but I have got 5 packets of these, with thanks to Aoife and the gang in Mercury, to give away. There's quite a number in each packet, so if you want to fire over a question and include the name of your shed, we're going to I'll post these out to you. I'll get them out to you by the time the shed opens. As I say, they're ideal for working outside and inside, and you can go from being a scarf to a pull up. And as everybody was saying, you know, face masks and covering. This is a respiratory disease. It travels through, you know, droplets, as we've all heard and become familiar with. So you can't have enough protection. And sometimes, because I know we were dealing with the face shields at the start, and they were more comfortable in a work area. But I think everybody, the science has gone back to saying it has to be mask and mask only. Mm-hmm. Have you found that, Robbie, with the Perspex shields?
Yeah, we had a project actually up in Dundalk that we were on, and they insisted, and again we kind of was a bone of contention with us and the main contractor. We had a bit of a row with them because they asked us to come and stop. Would we stop temperature testing people because they weren't doing it, and they were promptly told where to go. And then the second one was we introduced the face coverings as such. They had introduced full face visors, and what was happening was the guys were walking around with them half cocked. So they were kind of useless. It's okay if they were down on a wet day, they'd steam up, and the lads would just pull them up anyway. So it was a kind of a bit of a poor choice of equipment. I suppose at the time they thought it was the best piece of kit for, because you'd see them on the TV, you'd see the medical staff in hospitals, and they'd have the full face visor, but it doesn't work like that in construction, and for manual labor. And that's partly why we introduced the snoods, because they come up and they don't fog the glasses up as much. Some of the other masks that they fog your glasses up, and again that gives us another problem of not being able to see. So again, we have bought lads anti-mist glasses, certain sites, but they're expensive. They're 10 or 12 quid a pair, but they're very good. They're very good. There are wipes, or different types of wipes you can get for the insides of the glasses. But no, look, it's what we've introduced has worked well. And I suppose the fact that we've been a little ahead of the curve, other companies have taken out what we've done, and because that kind of has vindicated what we've done it and why we've done it. The whole idea is to protect our people, and that's the reason. That's the reason for this, because like you say, Frank, it's this isn't something that you bring this home and your whole house is gone. This is a killer. And
No, absolutely. A question in from Raymond McBride from Kilmacrennan and Shed in Donegal. Are your COVID safety officer trained professionally by yourselves? And I suppose the follow-up question to that is, have you any guidelines you could share with us that we can share out?
Yeah, we can. The CIF, it's actually available on their website. They issued an SOP, a standard operating procedure. It's version 7 at the moment. And in that, there's a section for what a COVID marshal is and what they should do. There's no real training, because it's all real common sense. It's just follow the guidelines, but it's all there.
It's on CIF.
It's on the CIF website, so it's all there. We can send you stuff if you want, but again, the best place to go is on the CIF website or the HSA website. There's a lot of good guidance on that too.
Great. No, I'll take that, and I'll look that up.
What we're finding here as well, Robbie, is just general people. They're forgetting about when they're in the general work areas, they do come across and you will say, look lads, remember your social distance and so on. So our COVID marshals on site here, we're just constantly sending them around to generally keep everyone in that 2 meter or more away from each other. So it's getting it into people's mind. Don't forget that. Wear your face masks. Like if you're going into a shopping center or like that, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your mask on. So it's the reminder of that,
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's habits, and they slip. Another question in from Balbriggan Men Shed. Should all safety measures be included in the shed safety statement? So I assume signage is a big part of it. Yeah.
If there are safety measures, yes, it would be pertinent to put it in. We had to change our safety statement, as most companies did, to include COVID-19 and what we've put in place. So yeah, because the insurance will look for it. I'm sure your insurance companies will look for your procedures on COVID and how you're protecting the people using your facilities. So yes, would be the answer to that.
Great, brilliant. And well, the legal implications for a COVID officer, that's a bit
zero.
That's
zero.
Perfect. Yeah. Does your snood have a filter? It's normal cotton snood. It doesn't have a filter, and we're not saying it's medical by any means, but it can be with a bit. As you get used to it, you double it up and you fold it in on itself, so it becomes a sort of a double protectant in that sense. Not saying it's medical grade, because we can't, and that's just simply a fact, but it's better than nothing. And I think that's the behavior, is that if your mask is, if you don't have a mask, or if you can't work with the mask, because some men can't and some people can't, you can double up the snood very quickly, and you have a lot more protection than you do without anything. So
Yeah, look, we've given out a couple to each employee so that they can keep them regularly cleaned as well. Like you, as you say, it's better to have that than nothing at all. Now, some can't wear it, and they say, look, they're going to wear the standard mask that you can buy inside in the chemist, the surgical type mask. So, but look, majority of the people are wearing this, and it is working well out there, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Look, we'll move off COVID, but there's a couple of snoods on the way to Donegal and Balbriggan, and I'll sort that out later. I'm sure I'll get myself in trouble. We're going to talk about workshop safety, and Sean Halton from Rathout Men's Shed sent in a question. Now, I did forward it on to you, but I'll just summarise the question for everyone listening. Please ask the panelists about options and costs for setting up clear, easy to clean and sanitised eye-perspex dividers next to a shed workshop bench to enable 3 men to work safely side by side on a project. Specifications, supply and installation costs for the above would be very helpful for us, as we are currently applying for a local authority grant to assist us. Who wants to take that, gents?
Well, I'll kick that one off if you want.
Okay, thanks, Robbie.
I suppose, look, we would use the perspex in offices, and it's very handy because obviously you can see through it and this, that and the other, and it has its pluses. In a workplace setting, particularly where you guys might be doing a lot of woodwork, we would tend to use a harder grade timber, because once the perspex gets a belt, the perspex can be as thick as you like. It's sometimes where it attaches to the bench can be the weak point, and you find that it breaks over and over again. We've tried it, and guys have hit the perspex with pipe and wood and pallets and all sorts of different stuff, and it's broken. So we ended up using maybe a thicker plywood or some sort of an 8x4 sheet of wood. And again, yeah, there you go. They're the canteen areas in the NCH for the guys. It's just to separate them. Again, they're not going to get a belt of wood, but that's the type of stuff we're using, say on workbenches, etc., where numerous guys have to maybe work on maybe 2 or 3 guys, just to try and divide it, because they're a lot sturdier, and it's simple at that. I don't think it's a big thing if people can't see each other. They can still walk around and talk to one another, communicate. But they're sturdier, and it'd save you an awful lot of hassle in the long run. You could put the nicest perspex coverings around them, but once they get a belt, they're not the greatest. They don't take it very well. So again, that's the type of stuff we use. Some of the guys have put hinges on them so they can actually fold them down and put them away on a workbench, you know. So very clever stuff indeed, but it's I would steer away unless you really wanted perspex.
That's great. Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's very good. And then that will allow you your 15 minutes or so. Do you find that it sort of gives it?
Oh, look, if guys are working, if one is working on one side of the bench and another's working on the other, and the divider is there, so you can work there all evening. You know.
Yeah.
There's no hassle in that respect. Again, bringing the social distance into it, as long as they're not on top of one another, breathing on top of one another, they're fine. There are going to be, you know, times where a piece of wood or they need to lift something and they're going to need a hand to lift it. So that's just, you know, that's part of the course, wear the PPE, follow the rules, and you'll be fine. It's, you know, as Dec said there, a lot of guys, when they get back into the setting, and we kind of find in the drawing rooms and all, where they think their work is done, they just switch off momentarily, you know, and they kind of go back to normal, you know, and it's very easy for somebody to be standing beside you yapping with no mask on, and I think it's up to, you know, if you feel uncomfortable in that situation, certainly it's up to us to say, look, guys, you need to wear the PPE, and they self-marshal themselves. But it is very easy to forget, in fairness, because we're all human, and I think a lot of people do miss, you know, that element of just being able to talk to people and converse with people. There's a lot of people working at home at the moment, and part and parcel of you know, when I talk to them, they say they miss the interaction. So when your people are coming back into the sheds or in the sheds, it'd be very easy just to forget momentarily. So I suppose reminders all over the place, and that's it really.
Any tips for the sterilizing the tools? You know, you mentioned that wipes, alcohol wipes. Is there?
Alcohol wipes we use, and that's probably the best. What we do with those then is, you know, not to put them into to the normal bin when we've wiped something down. You know, put it into it takes 72 hours for the virus as such to die off any wipes or any equipment. So when we wipe stuff down, we put them into, you know, a different colored bag maybe, and leave it in the bag for 72 hours and then put it into your rubbish, as opposed to having a hazardous type bin, because obviously there's an extra cost to those if you wanted to take them away. But it's just like that. When we wipe stuff down, put the stuff in a bin, leave it for 72 hours, and then put it into your normal bin. The virus should be gone off at that stage.
Yeah.
But it's important that guys, and I suppose it's the responsibility of the person using the tool first and foremost to wipe it down when he's finished with it. So as Dex says, they sign, you know, a drill out to one of the tradesmen. He wipes it down when he's finished, and he hands it on to the next person, you know, or brings it back wiped down to the storeman, you know, because again, it'd be unfair to hand it back to the storeman and have him wipe your stuff down. So there's a lot of personal responsibility in this.
And to be honest with you, Robbie, that's actually, it is, that part there is working very well here on site. So, you know, once you get into the routine of doing that, they do generally come back and go through it, wipe it down, and then pass it back to the storeman and sign it in.
Very good. Yeah, no, that's good. And thanks for sharing the on screen. See, don't use more than one extension cords, which might resonate in a few sheds I've been in around the country. But and almost to that point, Jerry Connor from Trim Men's Sheds asks, should there be two shut-off switches, one on a machine and a foot switch on equipment such as lathes or bandsaws?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. Ideally, yes, would be the answer, because then you've double. You know, we an incident recently where a guy was using a threaded machine and he had his hand on a piece of pipe in the machine, and he instinctively put his foot on the pedal and started the machine up, and he hurt himself. You know, his thumb got trapped in it. So yeah, as far as, you know, emergency stops, there should usually be a second one. So if it's a foot one, if you take your foot off, there should be another one in case it doesn't work. But again, that can come down to cost sometimes as well, and the machine and who makes it, and if people are willing to pay the extra. You get anything if you pay for it, but sometimes the machines just don't come like that.
And look, that's it. We have machines here, and because they're mobile, they're in an encased unit. They get wheeled around to the work areas. We're not in a position to do that, but with like what Robbie is saying there, yeah, look, definitely, if you're in a position to have, no one's going to give out to you for having two, you know. So if you can have that, I would, yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah, that's one thing came up. Phones in workshops, because it's some sheds do and some sheds don't, and
it depends. I suppose it depends. What we would tend to do when we have guys in workshops is we'd have maybe a storage box, and we ask them to leave their phones in the storage box, you know, at the door or close to the door. And if they need to make a phone call, you know, the rule of thumb, we'd say to them, if you need to make or take a call, put your back to the wall. And you know,
that's nice. Yeah, I like that.
We've had a lot of guys, you know, we have a lot of guys working at height, and we have a younger generation, or maybe just a generation, that they are welded to their phones. The phone is everything. Everything is on the phone. And if they get a Facebook post or a text message, even though they're 25 feet up in an MEWP, they have to take it. It's as if once the phone pings, they have to open that phone up, and they don't really realize most of the time that the hazardous position they're putting themselves in by taking this phone call. So we kind of say to them, look, you know, is it worth your life? Is it worth, you know, a serious accident? No, it's not. Yeah. So what we do is we make up boxes we get the guys to put their phones in the box. Now, again, I suppose it depending if your sheds, if everybody is trustworthy, there's no issue. You leave the phone in the box. But, you know, on certain sites, we'd have to have lock boxes for the guys. But again, you know, certain people on projects, we'd have some of our supervisors would need to use a phone, or certain guys may need to use a phone if their wife is pregnant or someone's in the hospital, and they'll get a sticker for their helmet to say a phone sticker, they're allowed to use their phone. That's kind of one way we'd manage it. But generally, when you're working around tools and sharp tools and power tools, no, we put the phones out, and if you need to make a phone call or take a phone call, you step outside the facility and you do your business, and that's it. Not in the workplace.
Very good. That's very good. These are great. I'm looking at the on screen. They're great tips. Is there a few more slides there you want to share? Because, as I say, we're recording it, so these will show up as if anyone wants to watch it back. But we'll also be able to share it if anybody jumps in.
So do you want to go through lifting equipment? Yeah. So again, like a lot of guys, they would have done this maybe in the workplace because it's mandatory. Manual handling training is mandatory, and we all go through it at one stage. That's my phone.
There you go.
How do you stop that? I don't know how to stop that. Anyway,
you forgot to put your phone in the box, Robbie.
No, it's she's ringing me on Teams, so that's what's ringing in the background.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, because I never talked to that lady, but I don't know why she's ringing me. I must have done something on her. But look, that aside, it's very important that people assess the task before they assess the task area and the load. A lot of guys will pick something up and they won't have planned their route before they go with it. So they've picked a box up that they can't see over the top of. And in a workshop scenario, they'd have the box up, they can't see over the top. It might be too heavy, it might be light enough, but there's so many things. There could be leads, bits of wood, etc. on the floor, and next thing, boom, they've tripped over it and they're on the ground. So it's very important that you assess the task. Can you lift it? Ask yourself the question, can I lift it? Because look, men are macho. Men don't like to be seen to be weak, and sometimes you don't like to ask for help either. So, you know, can I lift it? Yeah, of course I can lift it. And next thing, you've popped your back out. Very easy to pop your back out. Never be afraid to ask for help. Okay, it doesn't matter how strong you are, how big you are. If you can get help, get it. Assess the area. Okay, so have a look at where you're bringing it to from A to B. Make sure there's no trip hazards or holes in the floor or anything you can fall over. And then the load itself, the shape of it. Is it hot, cold? Probably not. If it's wood. If it's a pallet, can you lift that pallet? You know, do you flick it up onto your shoulder? What way do you lift it? So again, you know, some pallets are light, some pallets are very heavy. They're made of different types of wood. So make your plan, stick to the plan, consider a safe route. Okay, when you're lifting, again, broad stable base, put your feet flat on the floor. If you ever see a baby lifting stuff, they do it exactly right. They bend down. They you know, if you drop a pen or something in front of a child or a grandchild or whatever, they'll bend down, they'll bend their knees, they'll pick it up, and as they go to turn away, they won't twist their back. They'll turn their feet in the direction that they want to go, and then they'll move. And more guys are injured when they bend down and they go to twist as they're standing up. That twists your back out, it twists your spine unnaturally rather than moving your feet. And that's where we get a lot of our back injuries, our guys bending over to lift stuff. Another one is where you store the heaviest stuff. So a lot of people decide to store the heaviest stuff on the floor because it's easier, whereas your heavier stuff should be up at hip height, because it makes it easier for you to take off rather than having to lift it from the floor. You can just take it at that one height in close to you, turn your feet in the direction of movement, and away you go. So sometimes we store things in the wrong way as well, because we just consider it's easier to put the heavier stuff on the ground, where it's actually not. It's easier to have the heavier stuff up on a table of some description where you only have to pull it back to yourself. So again, they're all the little tips. But again, never be afraid to ask for help if it's too heavy. We've had more guys injure themselves because they thought they could lift something and they weren't able, and they didn't want to lose face on site in such a macho industry. But I think those days are gone. because, you know, it's costing guys, it costs the industry a huge amount in compensation claims, back injuries, time off. You know, it's massive. It's one of the biggest things we have across all industry in the country. It's not just the construction industry. It's all industries. Everybody at one point in their life will suffer with some sort of back pain. You know, that's fact.
That's very good, and I like that tip about it lead with your feet and don't twist your back, because I think that I've seen that happen, and as the doctors often say, you've only one back. You can sprain a hand and sprain an ankle, but you've one back. Just going back to the workshops there, question, Benny Devlin in Dunleer Men Shed, County Louth. How do you cope with dusty working areas and the whole area of, I suppose, ventilation and keeping a clean workspace?
Well, I suppose here on site with us, look, it's a clean as we go policy, but we have to remember and accept it is a building site. Inside in your sheds, definitely at the end of every day, make sure you have a good clean up after it. Well ventilated areas is a good idea as well. Keep all the dust down. Now, I do believe there's a new directive. I know it's in the UK with regard to the dust. I'm not too sure if it's come in here yet, Robbie.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so there it is. Even a lot of our tools that we have here, it has a bag on it to capture all that dust in it. So there's ways and means out there. We've dealt with Hilti. We've gone out to Hilti and secured a package from them, and all our drills, our grinders, and so on are capturing all that dust. So it helps greatly with that. Now, you're never ever going to get rid of every bit of dust or dirt, but at the end of every day, then we've a clean as you go policy. We expect our team to stand down 5 minutes before they're finished and clean up their general areas.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like it.
Frank, there are extraction systems that you can purchase that will, you know, it's like your extractor fan in the kitchen. You know, it will take the dust out. And again, there was a directive, an EU directive, cement dust was made a carcinogen 2 years ago. So they've brought in a new directive to control of dust, certainly in the workplace. So it's important that you know, certain wood dusts are considered carcinogens as well, the likes of MDF and stuff like that. So yeah, so again, there you go. You learn a little every day.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So again, dusty atmospheres are to be encouraged, and ventilation is huge, and extraction is another big thing. But again, like you'd want to be working in it for 20 years, you know, in really poor conditions.
Yeah,
that's kind of the rule of thumb. But at the same time, it's not a pleasant atmosphere for people to work in, particularly if guys have any respiratory issues or asthmas or something like that. It does bring it on.
Absolutely, and maybe that's be a silver lining to the COVID thing, that the whole wearing of masks will become more comfortable with in environments like that in the long term. You know, I know it's not a substitute for getting rid of the dust, but certainly
it helps with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be as easy as opening the door.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Question for you, Robbie. Well, you both might be able to ask it. Any recommendations on sanitizer, sort of minimum standards for alcohol content? Have you done much research into that, or?
No. There were some that were pulled off the market. The people were having I know the ones that the schools bought, the Department of Education, if you like, they had a high alcohol content. No, look, it depends. It's like anything. It's all subjective in the fact that I could use something and I have no reaction to it, but you might use it and you may have a reaction to it. So again, the products that are on the market, once they're CE marked, you know, there shouldn't be an issue with them. They're fine. And there's so many different sanitizers. I think anybody that makes sanitizer must be making a fortune at this stage, because there's all different types. There's scented ones, and you know, if you guys want your hands to smell gorgeous, well then burst away, you know. But no, there isn't really, and it can be trial and error, because you may get one that you know is brings you out in a rash, but others they may not. So you'll have to just do trial and error.
Yeah. And that CE mark.
Yeah. Once it's got the CE mark, it's been certified as safe for use in Europe.
Yeah.
When I suppose when we started back here on site, that was the first thing that we did. We had got in all the small little sachets, and we given them out to each and every employee. But look, as it went on, then we were buying more of the refill packages. But we can certainly find out and get some details who we've used and pass on that. And
no, I think much to any minimum standards, but I think you've answered that in the sense of, but it's appreciated. It's as long as you're using it, it's not a bad thing. I suppose it gets back to any face covering. Of course, there's degrees of excellence, but the first job is to use one and use any. That's fantastic. Listen, we're going to just chat a bit. There was a bit of a cheeky question in from Sean O'Reilly in Clanemen Shed, and it kind of fits with the last sort of area we're going to just briefly chat about. But Sean says he sees this week that the staff of Great Ormond Street Hospital in London won an environmental award for cycling 500,000 miles to work in 2020. Could Mercury lead the way in initiating a similar project in Intel, say, or the Children's Hospital? Now, I don't think there's an answer to that, Sean, to be fair, but it does open the door to talk about what you guys do as a company. And I know there's been certain 5Ks that you've run, and there's, doing the work is the work. But I think, you've always looked after employees in the round and encouraged all sorts of things to sort of extracurricular. Do you want to talk about the 5K, Aoife, you were mentioning that you did last?
Yeah, we did. We tried during the whole of the lockdown to keep staff as connected as we could, as best we could, at the same time in trying to do good things. That it wasn't just let's get together and do a walk or do a cycle. And a lot of the things that we do are employee driven. So huge amount of things. We'd survey staff quite a lot. We would have surveyed staff around COVID and how comfortable they felt coming back to the workplace. We would have, the wellbeing team would have done a survey on how we manage wellbeing and where we can improve on it. And all of those are in the process of being implemented. We're doing other things, like we've set up charity partnerships since last year. We've a fixed budget for CSR spend. We launched our responsible business plan, our Planet Our Duty, and we're going to launch a volunteering policy later on this month. I believe it's going to be ready by the end of March. But one of the things that came up during the year was that especially a lot of the employees that work abroad, and obviously they weren't able to rotate as normal, made huge commitments to the company by staying in location. So normally they would be traveling back every Friday to come home for the weekend and then going back on a Monday. When COVID came and there was such a massive impact to travel, a lot of them would have had to stay in country for long periods of time. There's obviously not a huge amount to do when you're working abroad and you can't see friends and family, and kind of your only social network is the people that you're working with all day long. So one of the employees in, I think it was Frankfurt, contacted head office to say, look, we don't really have a huge amount of stuff to do in the evening time. Could we do a company challenge whereby everybody does a 5K, whether or not it's walk, cycle, run, and the idea was that you'd do 5K and then you'd nominate 5 people onwards. And the staff managed to raise 7,500 for huge, various different charities. And the good thing about that was actually a couple of them did it for the men's shed as well. The good thing about that was that it was employee driven. They chose the charities that they wanted to nominate. So rather than the company saying, okay, we're going to do something for Temple Street or the Irish Cancer Society or one of the other partnerships that we have, the employees chose where they wanted the money to go. And we matched donations to everywhere that was raised money for. And then at the end, we did a raffle out of all the charities that were picked, and we made a donation to 2 of the charities that were picked between it. So small initiatives like that we found worked quite well. We don't always get it right. We try, and again, it's employee involvement is the main driver. They'll kind of give us the ideas, and once they get involved, it's normally when it's most successful.
That's great. No, it's great. And I think there's always a double edge to those. There's a double gain. There's what you gain personally and what you gain by helping. Listen, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you very, very, very much, Robbie, Declan, Aoife. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I hope that we can do this again and under different circumstances when things are back open. You'll be twice as busy as you are now. Well, not that you're not quiet now, but and maybe we can talk about different subjects and get on to talking about sort of what we can do in the sheds and workshops and get back to the good stuff of building and making things.
Can I just ask one question before we finish? I've been prompted by our comms guy to ask this mainly for the female employees in Mercury, but ahead of International Women's Day on Monday, they've asked us if we could all raise one hand. It's a Choose to Challenge campaign. You'll see the hashtag floating around, and they have sent me something to share, and they just want us to raise our right hand just like that all together. That's great. Thanks a million.
Very good.
Very good. And well, listen, gentlemen, Aoife, thank you very, very much indeed. The lucky sheds, by the way, that are getting snooted are Kilmacrennan, Trim Men's Shed, Rathoath, Balbriggan and Clane. And I'm sure there'll be others on to me afterwards to give out, and I'll look after all that in due course. Robbie, Declan, Aoife, again, thanks very much indeed, and take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.